Hello, thank you for joining me today for my chapter 7 on my empowerment series for helping you fill in the gap for your business succession plan. My name is Annette Manius, and I own a business for 31 years. I sold that business to three people that worked for me, and we had a very successful succession plan. So my exit was exactly what I had thought it would be, and it went well. My exit plan was to be able to look back on the business and say, I started that and they carried it on, and it's a going concern, and that it's grown and been what I wanted it to be. So that was my plan for exit, and what I wanted to see is my legacy. So I created a course to help other people to fill in that gap. And when I say fill in the gap, what that means is that in the beginning, you have your valuation, you have all the paperwork, you may know who's going to buy the business, and then you have your exit. Well, in between, there's a lot of things that need to happen, especially if you are like me and you're selling your business to people that worked for you, or even a family member, or like a friend of mine sold her business to someone that she knew in her industry that was looking to not be an employee anymore and wanted to own a business. So, if you have that situation where you need to make sure that your legacy is sustained, you need help with that, filling in that gap. So, that's why I am doing this series. And this is number 7 in that series. And it's called Do I Stay or Do I Go? I have a course that I've created, and it takes you through all these chapters from this series that I've put together. And if you look on my website, www.hellbenttosell.com, yes, I did say hellbenttosell.com, because we're all hell bent to sell our businesses. You will see my course, and you'll have all these chapters with more detail. So today's thought and discussion is about, should I stay or should I go? And that's always a big question when people sell their business. Do you stay in the business or do you exit? And if you exit, at what point do you exit? If you stay, what does that look like? Do you stay as an employee, as a consultant? How many hours a week do you work? There's a lot of details there. But beyond the details are, what do you feel inside about that? So what I did is because I had the business for 31 years, I stayed as a consultant for a year and a half, which is about a half a year more than what I really wanted to do. But I wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable with me leaving. And it worked out great. But I will tell you, the hardest part about that is that you're going into a situation where you used to own that, you used to be in charge of that. It's other people taking your business and running it, making their own decisions. So I'll give you a little hint about this. It worked great because I can't imagine just after 31 years walking away. I mean, they would have been okay if I had done that, but for me, I don't know that I could do that. However, you have to have the right mindset. So every day I had a little self-talk, especially in the beginning, the first 6 months. So I would go in on Mondays and help them. And I would have a little self-talk on the way there and before I walked in the door and say, this is not mine anymore. I am not making the decisions. So, okay, pros and cons to that. Um, I, unless they ask me, I have no say in this business anymore. And you really have to self-talk yourself with that and be okay with that. So, um, for the most part, I would say I was okay with that, 99%. I was okay with it. There were some times um, that I saw things, but I would say it. I'd say, you might not going to ask me my opinion, but I'm just going to tell you what I think. Do what you want to with it, but this is what I see. And they seem to appreciate that, but you have to also understand that if you do that, they might not take your recommendation, or they might do whatever they want to with it because it's theirs. They bought it. It's not yours anymore. So it's a different mindset if you're going to stay even for a small period of time, like me as a consultant. But what it did is it allowed them to feel not so much pressure, and it allowed me to back away slowly and be okay with that. The other piece of that was the employees. So they still saw me there, so they saw that it was a good transition and that it was okay. It allowed me to talk with them and kind of chat up the new owners and make sure that everybody was okay. So that for me, that was really good. Now I've seen other people that doesn't work very well for. I just think it depends on your situation. But my point of it is, you really need to think about that because it's not something that I thought about until it got to probably the end of our almost where I was uh, finally selling the business to that final point that I really thought about what am I going to do? Because I always said, I'm going to leave, I'm going to walk away. Well, I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't. But again, everybody's different, and just depends on what you want to do. So that's what this chapter is should I stay or should I go? And in my course, we talk about this quite a bit. And also, I have a worksheet, just like with the other lessons, about to help you kind of think through that. And what does that look like for you? Very thought provoking. So if you want to go to hellbenttosell.com, you will see at the top where you can purchase my course, which would be very, it's inexpensive, very, very good for you to see, as well as maybe the people who are buying your business. I had somebody recently tell me that they were going to show it to their successor, because they need to have all that information. So again, this is chapter 7. So if you haven't watched the first 6, you should go back and watch the first 6 chapters as well. I have videos for each one of those, and then they're in my course. So I hope that you will take a look and see what my course is all about. I think it'd be very helpful for you. And we'll see you on my next chapter video. Thanks.